Thank you very much, all of you, for joining and coming over. Actually, this thought was inspired because of this coronavirus. Unfortunately, this is a big calamity for the world, and we are all stuck in home. And so people are asking different questions in different times. So I thought, why not just have a kind of a session together, sitting at home and making the best of it. And these are the moments when we are literally forced to face ourselves. We are also forced to look at our own self and spend time with ourselves. So I thought the first topic, because everybody is now talking about spiritual values and spiritual lifestyle, and everybody is inclined towards it, sometimes knowingly, sometimes by default, and sometimes because the world needs it. So we do prayers, we do a lot of things in the hope that we'll have a better world, better time to live in. So this inspiration which came just to sit together and discuss this practical spirituality. So we will start from there. So it's a fashion thing that everybody wants to know, and how to make our lives spiritual, and what is spirituality in a practical terms. Unfortunately, more or less, you know we use religion to understand spirituality, and we explain spirituality from the prism and from the eyes of religion. And I feel that becomes one of the biggest question mark to understand, should we pursue spirituality or not, and what is spirituality actually. So let us take step by step. We will look at it. We'll look at it in a most whatever is possible from a logical perspective as to what is spirituality and why do we need it. In a very simple definition, if I may put it, spirituality is the science of spirit, the science of knowing who we are, science to understand what we are. If I want to be happy, the important part is I want to be happy. Who is this I who wants to be happy? If I want to get first grade in my college, who is this I which wants to get first grade? If I want to be successful in my business or in my life, who is this I who wants to be successful? So the spiritual outlook tells us, before you pursue this life, before you chase this world, before you aspire for ambitions and you run after them, it is important to introspect and inquire as to who is chasing, who is looking, and who is aspiring to be. The moment this question of I is addressed, that becomes a spiritual quest. Our scriptures have gone a step further in asking us, okay, that you want to pursue it, but telling us that the real joy of life is this question itself. If you want to live in this world happily, if you want to have fulfilled life, this is the first and the primary question which needs to be answered. And as long as you do not answer this question, all your achievements, all your scholarships, all your adventures in life won't find fulfillment. And why is it so? Because the crux of the whole life is this, what we call happiness. There are stages of happiness. Even an animal is happy, a human is happy, and in human also you see there are variety of happinesses. Some people are happy just by getting an extra dish to eat. you feel happy. Some people, they don't care for dish, but if they get a good vehicle or a car or a property, they get happiness. So the stage of happiness is also different for different people. And all this gives us a very beautiful understanding that in life, happiness is also not stable for each other. We all are aspiring for higher happiness than what we have today. Today, if I'm happy in this environment, I want a little bit more in aspiration that I'll be more happier. So if I'm happy with the present happiness, and if happiness is absolute, then I would not be aspiring for more happiness, because then I will be obviously happy. So how can I become more happy? So the more happiness concept itself shows that there is a stages to happiness. Scripturally, this is defined in a very beautiful manner, and there is a lot of stages to arrive at in happiness journey. But the crux of the whole thing remains that the focus of happiness is not in the outside world, but it is an inside world. Hence the question of inquiry of I. Hence to find out who am I? And this is what the spirituality means. So basically, in all these activities we do in the world, be it worship, be it going to school, colleges, working in companies, or doing anything we like, the basic concept of everything is that I am happy and I understand who is this I who is really happy. So if we understand this fact, then life is done. We have achieved what we came for. So this whole beautiful experience, how to lead this life from a very basic, from child to the ripe age of ours, if we understand how to conduct ourselves throughout our life's journey by keeping this focus in mind, that I, this I, who am I? This I, which is me, this I that I am aspiring for, then all our education, all our effort, everything fructifies. And this, how to lead this life, is spirituality. So when we talk about spiritual lifestyle, in that secular as well as non-secular elements both become one. That's why my master used to very often say that there is nothing in this world, in this creation, which is not spiritual, because the element of super consciousness, the spark of super consciousness, is prevailing everywhere. And if it is everywhere, then how can anything be without this I-ness? So this I-ness, this awareness of I, is the key which makes us spiritual. So if I'm to put it in a simple way, spirituality is the way of living in every age and every stage of our life, which inspires us, motivates us, and guides us to remain in the supreme consciousness of oneness, of I-ness, of me. What we, even if you call it God, you call it super consciousness, you call it energy, you can call anything you like. So the ability to do that is spiritual lifestyle. Now there are many, many ways, many teachers have come and shown us how to do that. Today in the modern parlance, we have value education for our children. We have formally adopted, I'm sure my friends from Trinidad and Indonesia, Medan, are here, so they can vouch for it, that we have experimented it at our school levels from the age of 3 onwards, and we have seen that the value education works, wherein we give our children that orientation to go inwards, to understand who they are, And once that orientation is given to these children at that age, it can only blossom and grow further. So that is the beauty of the reason for value education. Because the whole thing, now we are not telling it's not a religious orientation, it's a spiritual orientation, wherein a child is oriented to think within, to have that self confidence, to understand that there's nothing in this world that I cannot achieve because everything is my own projection. If I want a Mercedes Benz, I can because it's my projection. If I want to travel the world, I can because it's my projection. This confidence has to be instilled in an organized, logical manner in every child. And this is the basis, the foundation we put in our spiritual life. And as the child grows, when he comes to his little bit of, when he's around 10ish, just before the teen, that is a time when we start giving him the orientation of social interactions. Why? So he realizes that the I which he's looking at the me is also the same I everywhere. So if I want respect for myself, the same I is respecting and respected in others too. Hence the social interactions changes when you have the spiritual outlook to look at. When you understand this spiritual life, then your interactions with others, your conduct with others, your socializing with others would have a different approach, because now you will realize within your heart of hearts that you are not really interacting with others. That is also part of you. That is also being part of that oneness, that I-ness. And hence, in that phase, we focus more on the social interactive part. After laying the foundation of values, we expand that value from I, single I, to this humongous I, which has this multifaceted personality, which has this whole magnitude of multifaceted creation. So in which all our animals, plants, and friends, they come into this section and we start relating to them and say, yes, we are no different. We may look different, but we have the same consciousness prevailing everywhere. That is the gift of spirituality. When we come to teens, now we understand that now the ambitions have started creeping in. Now the mind plays a different game altogether in our head. And when it all happens together, then we start realizing that how do we understand that the ambition which I am projecting is nothing but an expansion of my own inner joy and love. That joy which I was holding within myself is now getting shared with others. This experience, this expression of joy, this expression which is unbound is getting choking me. I want it to come out. When I'm too happy, you start grinning. When you're too happy, you want to smile for no reason. You want to get up and dance, you want to sing. Why all that happens in a natural state of happiness? Because the expression is very difficult to withhold. And then it expands, and that is creation. So expansion becomes creation in a normal manner. So this is how the beauty of the growth is. That same I-ness concept, when you look at it from a spiritual perspective, the whole creation becomes part of you. The whole creation becomes nothing but your own reflection, reaction, and resound. So then we come into the stages of, when we start developing, now I'm ready. Now I'm happy. That's fine. That is a basic stage of spiritual being, that you have to become happy and fulfilled. I'm not looking for any walking stick, any helpers to assist me or to make me happy. Now, this joy needs further expansion. And in that, the formal, organized way say, okay, now I take the responsibility of making others happy. In that, you may find a partner along with you. And then you jump into the next stage of life, which becomes what we call as grihastha ashram or as householder's responsibility. And that is a beautiful stage of life in which people have the ability to share their happiness. They have the strength to discuss, to allow this love which is oozing from them, bubbling inside them, to go and, you know, to be with everybody around. And that is what happens when there's expansion happens. You meet another compatible people, you come together, and then that is an expansion of a family system. The social norms grow. For that also there is a regulations, if I may put it, rules lay down. Why there is a rules for it? Why can't randomly people come together and say, okay, I'm happy and I feel love and I want to share it? Because if you don't have discipline, then there will be chaos. People will misuse that liberty. That freedom becomes a pain if it is not regulated. Hence, in the foundation, the basic core attribute is discipline. See, it's like everybody has a car, everybody is free, it's a democratic country. World is praising democracy. So, okay, take my car and drive. No, you cannot. You have to obey the rules and regulations. Otherwise, you will have an accident. It's natural. Because if I am free to do whatever I want, my neighbor too is free to do whatever he wants. So how does the two freedoms clash or come together? This combination, this coming together is the joy of discipline. And this is in the purview of discipline. So that is another outlook of spiritual way of looking at life, is that you understand that yes, now when I'm expanding, I must understand the real joy is not in just believing that I'm happy and I'm doing my work. It is also being conscious that my process of happiness, my process of sharing happiness, my expansion does not become negative for others, does not become pain and unhappiness and hindrance for others. Because if that happens, that means truly I cannot be happy. I cannot claim to be happy person if somebody else because of me is unhappy. Then in some iota I will be feeling a little bit disturbed that something is not right. Then I have to check back, hold myself, and relook at life, that what went off, where did I deviate, or what happened. Because as long as we are in symphony, we are in together, then there has to be joy all along. We may or may not walk for long together, but to whatever extent we have walked together must be in joy and happiness. And once we have reached that level, then people will keep coming and going. That does not matter because everybody has their own journey, own life. And when we reach, that is another stage of happiness. And then we further expansion realizes now the desire to grow, the desire to help becomes redundant, because now my presence itself is helpful. My presence itself is fulfilling. If somebody gets helped, okay, but I don't claim that I have helped somebody. So initially we want to help others, then the help happens. We don't get up in the morning and say, I want to help somebody, but naturally I'm walking and I smile, somebody gets happiness. I share something and somebody gets, but I don't think that I have shared anything great to be even thinking about it. So that is how the next stage of life comes in the expansion of spiritual life, that you start doing things in a very natural manner in which there is no claim in our happiness, there is no claim in sharing, there is no claiming that I'm helping people, I'm doing something for others. That stage also gets left out, and you move into the next realm in which this whole concept of living becomes a part of my existence. So the way I live is exactly the spiritual lifestyle. And in that phase, they say now you have reached a stage wherein interference with your children, with others, should become less. Why? Because they have their own journey to follow. They have to explore their life. They have to figure out themselves as to what is that I for them, what is their spirituality, what is their level of understanding. So we don't interfere, but as an adult, we are there to guide, share our experiences, share our joys, and then we move. And that in many parlances, we have different, ashram vyavasthas in which we mention different names for it. But that is what happens when you seclude yourself out. They call it vanaprastha. You go into the different seclusion lifestyle in which you live in your satisfied state of affair without interfering personally, but observe them. Because if your children have grown, they have to also fall, they have to trip to learn how to walk properly. So then the interference gets off, and then you become only a guide who is there when you need. And he will only come in when he feels it is really critical. My children are getting messed up, I need to help. Or my friends are in dire need and they don't know how to ask, so let me go and help. But that stage is different. So once you saturate in that state also of fulfillment, that now your presence itself has become a symbol of peace, a symbol of love. When people look at your face, they should feel happy. They should get a smile on their face. When they think of you, they should get revived out of their depressions. Once you have reached that stage of happiness, then the next stage comes wherein you forget everything else. And then you constantly, continuously would like to remain in that state of being. And there your aura becomes much higher, much larger. Then your physical presence is not required in every place of the world, but your aura is already delivered there. So I can be sitting in my room and influencing the whole world. Then I don't need to talk to anybody personally. I don't need to go anywhere, because now that love, that energy, that I-ness has become one with the consciousness, that become one with the whole creative elements. So I can be anywhere in this physical form, but my aura, my energy can prevail anywhere. So that is the spiritual journey, if you look at it. If I can summarize the whole thing. Now, how do we achieve the whole thing is practical spirituality. Now, I made it like a storyline to all of you, but the fact is, and I'm not claiming that am anywhere specialized in this, or I have reached kind of state of that. But yes, theoretically, God's grace, by Master's grace, I have able to understand in whatever capacity I have. And now it's my journey too, to realize where I am and where I have to reach. But as they say, if you know the goal, then your journey is easier. You can keep walking towards it. But if you don't know where you're going, then you're like a blind man jumping into a bus and you don't know where to go. So the direction is important. But once you have taken the journey, then the master would take us. So this was an overview of a practical spiritual lifestyle in which we are looking at. Now, this whole concept, I have tried to break it down into two major topics. One was from the perspective of a parent, which we call as value parenting program. We look at different things about parents. And the other one was for teachers, the formal teaching faculties who have dedicated their lives in education, in formal education, and teachers who have, who are spending most of the time with children, grooming our future generations, giving them that much needed value orientation. So that is another program in which we try to share and help that team of ours, those brothers and sisters, and then take them through the journey to understand how to integrate this spiritual lifestyle in whatever they are doing. So, for parents and for teachers. And then we have a third section, which is dealing directly with some topics of value orientation. So, I've created a kind of sheet. I can send it to all of you if you're interested. You can always, send us a note if you're interested further. Then I can take you from that journey in which we can discuss a particular topic properly. So if right now, with all that what we have discussed today, if anybody wants to join in and ask me any question, or anybody who'd like to come in or send your questions, please feel free. And you have to tell me if you're interested to come in directly, and I can bring you in, or you can even ask me a question, or you can type. So right now I see that every one of you have put yourself on mute, which was very polite and nice of you all. But if you're ready, you can always speak. You have to unmute yourself and then you can speak. I'm also new to this software, so please bear with me. So if you have any questions anywhere, you are more than welcome. Yeah, I think everybody has kind of on a mute. Yes, Pavan, I can see all of you have said hello. Anybody has any questions? You can always type it out. I can put the question up on the screen for everybody to see. So Sister Poonam has mentioned here experience to get out of from fear and hold God's hand 24/7. What is the clue? Fear. Okay, we can discuss few things. So first point comes as to discuss fear. Can you believe the first thing we are discussing is fear? So if I really to start with, what is fear? Why do you find fear? As there's an old story, you look at a rope lying there and you believe that rope to be a snake, and that is the origin of fear. So scripturally speaking, fear indicates or originates from ignorance. So lack of knowledge is fear. The more and more knowledgeable, the more and more aware we get in life, the fear disappears. No, if you have any further, sorry, I'm just trying to read also at the same time. So if anybody has a clear question, you can ask. I was just trying to use the word from your question and discuss that. So in a simple way, fear is lack of awareness, lack of knowledge. And when we look at this, okay, sister has a very, okay, one more question has tapped in from there, that okay, it is because of, you step out and there is aggression, there is terrorism, there is all that negativity, so that fear is real, correct? So see, all that we call it real is because we are not being aware people. For a simple logic, let me take you through this very logically thought process. As my master told a story one day, he said a great saint, enlightened one, had many disciples. One of the disciples were very excited to be his student, and he says, Master, I believe you completely. You tell me what you want. As you want, I will live. The master very politely said, my teaching is same always. Remember that God is one, and you too have the same spark of God. So whatever you see in this world is God's. So live freely, live fearlessly, and be happy. So this student in his, the excitement, walked on the streets claiming that, look, everything is God. And in his excitement, he started walking in the middle of the road. And there he saw a chaos, people running away, screaming, run, run, leave the road, go aside. Why? There was a mad elephant who had escaped and who was running right towards him. And this man said, no, no, my master just told me that everything is God, even this elephant is God. And there's a Mahout sitting on top of the elephant who was trying to control this wild elephant and was screaming to the world that, hey, move, move. This elephant has lost his control. Move. But this man, in his so called confidence or ignorance, he said, nah, my master just told me that he is God. And he remained on the road. And the elephant came and threw him off. He had a number of fractures. And when he was lying in the hospital, the master came to see him. And he was so full of anger or frustration that he pounced on the master and said, Master, I believed you. I believed you that everything is God. Then how can that God hit this God? God said, you are very, skewed. You have very narrow vision. You could see the God in the elephant, but you didn't see the God sitting on top of the elephant who was screaming and telling you, get out of the way. You chose to follow one God, but you chose to ignore the another God who was guiding you further. So it is a very selective way of looking at life. When I say there is a chaos, they are social norms to follow. If I go into a ghetto area at night when I'm not ready and prepared for it, obviously I'm committing an act which can reach another thing. It can have a different consequences. I'm not saying that you cannot have consequences in the normal way. Well, that is a different story. That's not part of the fear analysis. So when you talk about fear, it is basically kind of not being aware of who you are, not being aware of what the environment is, not being aware the discipline, the protocol, the social norms. And if you follow all of that, then there will be no fear. The origin of fear is ignorance. And that ignorance, if you analyze what is that ignorance, if you look at it, what is that ignorance? That particular thought, if you get ignorance, is actually lack of faith in God, in yourself. The knowledge that I am full will always put you in a track which is good. Now, another fear in this whole process is that sometimes, you know, we have a notion that we know things. The information is wrongly understood as knowledge. Today, information is everywhere. Today, you find information everywhere. You can Google it and you get it. You have a phone, smartphone, you can ask anything, the answer is right there. So information is there, but that information is not knowledge. It is just data. That data, unless and until churned, internalized, and understood, cannot become knowledge. But we have a convenient way of putting it that now, since I know what it is from an information perspective, I am knowledgeable. No, the knowledge is the next step. For that, you have to churn the information, analyze it, understand it, assimilate it, internalize it, then it becomes a knowledge. And our next challenge, the social norm, is that today knowledgeable people who have done that unfortunately have stopped only at an intellectual level. They have not put it into practice. So when you have not put into practice, you have not understood the nuances of that knowledge. See, I may know accounting, but unless and until I go into a company and work, I won't know the intricate complexity of accounting. Similarly, marketing, I can sit in my lab and create a beautiful marketing plan. But if I have not gone out and met with the frontliners, met with my customers, met with my people, understood the psychology of the market, understood the dynamics of the international trades, my project will be theoretical and people will say, yes, I know you make logical sense on paper, but sir, reality is different. This difference between experience and knowledge is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. So when people talk about a wise, like a wise man, just because they have knowledge about it, they have churned the data, they can quote you, book number so and so, page number so and so, paragraph number so and so. That indicates knowledge. That does not indicate wisdom. And the guide, the people who are counselors, they are supposed to have knowledge, but they are supposed to have wisdom more than knowledge. So the churning step, information must be churned into knowledge. Knowledge must be put into practice and implemented and tried and tested to become wisdom. Only when you have wisdom, you have the ability to understand and guide others. So the fear element is up to the age stage of knowledge, this fear exists. In wisdom, the fear does not exist because you have crossed the stage of fear. So when you look at wisdom, knowledge, up to knowledge, there is fear because that knowledge shows that we are still working with our mind and we have not yet become one and internalize it with the whole thing. And hence we have to go to the next stage to understand that the fear comes first because of ignorance, because of lack of awareness, because of not being able to live those values, those principles, those philosophies that we have started to believe in. I hope it makes sense. So fear is true, but the origin of fear we must understand. And the more and more we look at the origin of the fear will also disappear. This knowledge of oneness, this experimenting with yourself, this trial to practice these principles, these philosophies of life would give us more and more wisdom and awareness. And the more and more wisdom and awareness comes, the fear concept will disappear. And the more we are stabilized into wisdom, the concept of fear will not have any relevance. So when you look at all of that together, that is from a practical perspective. But we have to start from the basics. We cannot jump up and say that here I am and I can handle it. Just because I have read some books, I'm capable to do this. No. Whatever we have read, whatever we have understood, we need to put into practice. And unless and until we implement it, we dirty our hands, we practice them, we will never have the full confidence which we need to have. And as long as we don't have the full confidence, the fear factor will remain. So fear factor itself shows you that lack of practice, lack of understanding still exists. There's another question which says, my SSC asked me, singing why fear when I am here? We still don't understand what Bhava is doing. See, when there is a question relating to, when a master leaves the form, people who are used to practicing, people who are used to following a master in a physical sense, and if that master leaves the physical body, people get lost most of the time. Unfortunately, we are so used to a physical guide that if one leaves, you are looking for another. But we forget that the physicality of a master was not to make us dependent on the physicality. It was to make us realize that our physicality is basically same as that physicality. And he is teaching you not to follow him, but the consciousness energy which was through him coming to us. And even if that physical form drops, it does not anyway relate to him as a consciousness remaining. So when you look at life from that perspective, obviously if your dependency is only in the belief that the master was that body, then obviously you will be fearful if that body is away from your eyesight. But if you believe, that's why I said this, knowledge is there that he's master, but it has not become wisdom to understand the master is not the body, but the indweller which carried that body, that consciousness, that supreme awareness which was sitting there. And that awareness has not gone anywhere. So the moment you get that back by experiments, by trial, by practicing, you will have no fear and no question even to think about whether the master has gone or not gone. There's another question Ajinkya has asked: how to practice practical spirituality in professional life? What would you like to tell the working professionals? Ajinkya, I think if you can make your question a little bit more like to the topic, but generally speaking, I would like to discuss this in next session with more details about career planning. I wish we had, if we have a registration of before people, then I know we can talk about it is actually from a professional perspective, how our spiritual guides tell us how to choose professions. What is a profession? So, in a general way, let me just address it slightly. In professional life, the first premise to understand is that the word professional life is only given because we have believed that what I do for making living is professional, and what I do for not for making directly earning my bread and butter is not professional work. The, the classification is okay for worldly understanding, but if you look at the attitude behind the work should remain the same. For example, for going to work, if you have the respect for time, if you have dedication, if you have commitment, these are all spiritual values, then you will be on time to the work. You will never waste time in the work. You will not waste resources. You will be always finding ways to improve your productivity, and you will see that you are a team player and you work properly together. So all of these becomes the value systems which are important for professional life. So basically professional life, what we call profession, is an extension of my life. So as long as my professional life does not hinder or obstruct my inquiry and my process to explore my I-ness, my oneness, I'm fine. But the moment I think that my whole life, that my whole attention must be towards finding what is, how to make money, how to earn a car, how to make a bungalow. If I move towards that and that becomes my focus of taking a profession, then there is always an equilibrium, and that equilibrium you can never solve. Because today you will be making 100,000, tomorrow you want to make 200, 300, and all that continues. But the chase is okay as long as it does not obstruct your personal growth and development of a spiritual lifestyle. So, just to touch upon this question, from a practical spirituality point of view, professional life, what we classify as professional life, which is nothing but the activity done for which the remuneration comes to sustain your lifestyle, should not be more important than your life, should not be considered more important than your purpose of life and your personal growth. So living, if I can put it more directly, what we call professional life is for living. Why are you doing living activities? Is for life. Like today in Corona, why are we cutting short our whole professional life, because life is threatened. So as long as life is a priority, today we have learned it in a hard way that life is more important than living. So we are all willing to sacrifice all our living sitting at home for a month and don't care what happens afterwards, because life is threatened. So I think this should give us a very beautiful understanding that today, thanks to Corona, we have understood this reality, that life is more important than living. So in professional life, we have to understand that keeping the commitment, keeping the value systems intact, we must conduct in the professional life in such a way that it should complement and supplement my life goal. It should not hinder and obstruct and curtail my life. That if I'm working so much that I have become so workaholic that I don't care for my family, my spouse, my children, and myself, then something has gone wrong. Because in life and living, the importance of life has to be there. And when you give importance to life, this itself will drag you to do your professional work with utmost sincerity and perfection. So, Ajankya, just to touch upon that point, maybe we can, take it up further in detail other way, but I hope this will at least introduce the topic. Live comments. 1 minute. Somebody else has come something. What is the difference between fear and respect? What is the difference between fear and respect? Very interesting. Well, if I dare to imagine, the concept of fear and respect has come because we show respect because of fear. We, as in the professional life, we joke and say that, you laugh at bosses' jokes, even if they're horrible. Why do we do that? Because of fear, not out of respect. So the basic, another beautiful thing which I've learned from our scripture like Gita is that the scriptural understanding or the whole concept, it not only tells you what is what, but it also gives you the attribute of a person who is following it. So if you have respect, how do I know that you have really imbibed respect and you are not only showing respect out of fear? There are attributes attached to that. So that is where your clarity will come further once you understand what happens when you have fear and what happens when you have respect. For example, sometimes we do not like to conduct in a particular manner in front of our father. I have recently seen in my travels that some youngsters do say that, hey, it's hypocrisy. Do you think your dad does not know? And what is wrong if he knows? So why can't you do the same act in front of your father? Very good question, right? Even the youngsters would say that, yes, if you are genuine, you should do the same thing in front of your father. Otherwise, you're doing something wrong. Need not be. For example, you want to see a movie. In an Indian context, it is easier to understand from an Asian perspective. From Western perspective, it becomes slightly challenging because the society norms and understanding is slightly different. But there also, if you, unfortunately, we define Western society based on few metropolis. If you go down to the Western smaller cities and village areas, they are amazingly, beautiful. They have amazing value system which are same as anywhere in the world. So overall, you can understand it. That there are certain decorum. Sometimes you feel that, hey, in front of my dad, I cannot speak like that. In front of my mom, I should not do that. It is not that they don't know what you're doing. They have also gone through the same age. But when you do it, not because it is inappropriate, but out of a respect for them, because, hey, this is my age. At my age, I'm allowed to do this. But I can do it with my friends. I cannot do it in front of my parents. There are something which are very convenient and comfortable. The way we talk, the way we walk with our friends is okay. Everybody accepts it. But you cannot talk the same way to your dad, the way you speak to your friend. Similarly, you cannot talk something to your younger children, younger brother and sister, the way you talk to your colleagues. So there is a difference protocol which comes into play, what we call maryada in Sanskrit. There is a maryada element. So when you follow the maryada, the decorum, the discipline, the respect for each other, see that falls with awareness of that. When you act through respect. The fear element comes when you do these same things. The action can be same, but the intent is selfish. The basic difference between fear and respect is selfishness. When you're looking for gain, when you're doing something in expectation of something in return, that element becomes originating from fear. I talk to you nicely because I don't want you to get angry. Oh, if he gets angry, he creates mess, he makes a noise, so better avoid him. That is fear. So you stop telling the person, even though he's wrong, and you feel like you have the authority to tell, but you don't because you feel he'll make a mess out of the life. Or what if he stops talking to me? What if I go out of fashion with him? So any of such things which which forces you to act is out of fear. But when you don't do that, is like he's elder. If he said something, so what? Not because I'm afraid that he will stop talking to me or he will not fulfill my needs or whatever. That is not, the element is not an expectation. If the response is not expectation back, if this response is not based on selfishness, self gratification, then it is respect. If it is expecting something in return in some way or other, then it becomes fear. So I think the basic difference, if you look at fear and respect, is in the inner attitude, in the intent of the person. So if the intent is out of love, out of peace, out of bringing the environment in calmness, hey, why to aggravate anything? That is respect. Not because I'm afraid of you, but when I do something in anticipation that today I should be calm, tomorrow I'll extract more from him, tomorrow let me pass it through so that tomorrow I can handle it, then it becomes fear. Going to work on time because my salary will be cut, my attendance will be hindered, that is out of fear. But going to work on time because of respect for time, because of punctuality, because of my commitment to the cause of my work, that is respect. So that is how we can look at these two things. So I think today we have reached an hour of our session, and whatever little questions we could address today, we have done that. So I think it's a good experiment for all of us, and especially for me. So I thank you all for coming and joining in this whole thing. So may I request you all, if you like this and if you want to do it further, and as we have a long indoors we have been asked to stay in. So what I would suggest is that if you can send me your comments, send me your suggestions, I'll be more than happy to have these sessions on a regular basis, and we can take it from there and we can choose. So what I can do is I can also email you or WhatsApp you. If you want me to WhatsApp, you can send me your numbers. Our team can get back to you. We'll send you certain indicative topics, and you can choose on the topics, and whosoever gets the highest response, and depending on the time zones, we can take it forward and arrange for the next session accordingly. And I'm more than willing to do it as often as possible. It could be once in a week or whatever. So it all depends on your suggestions, and if you like it, I'll be more than happy to get back and organize the next session. So please suggest your topics, suggest your thoughts. We can do it either on parenting, on teachers training, or on practical spirituality, or any topic that you feel. And if I am able to share my thoughts on that or bring in a session together, we'll be more than happy. So thank you once again, all of you, uh, for all the participation and all your lovely comments. And please feel free to send your comments and suggestions. Thank you.